the book, Sound of the Flute, was written for 2 years. I spent 2 years writing it. And I completed the book in March 2003. So that's about 20 years ago. Yeah, about 21 years ago. So I started writing the book in 2001. But every time I start, I would get to maybe chapter 2 and I'll get stuck there. I'll have to cancel and start writing again. As at this time, I didn't have any formal training in writing, so I was just moving like the snail, hit the wall and then navigate to another direction. So I would write. At the first time I wrote up to chapter 2 or 3, I got stuck. So I stopped and had to go and rework the plan again, and came back, started writing the second time, got about 2 or 3 chapters. I got stuck again. I had to start again for the third time. So by the time I got stuck the third time, I suspended the book. I knew that there is a lot I need to research and understand. First of all, the Igbo tradition. I didn't know that much about the Igbo tradition, the Eastern cultures. So I had to travel to my village. I had to go to the village this time. I spoke to my mom about what I wanted to do. My mom didn't really understand whatever it was I wanted to write. She's the kind of person that would always support me. So long she knows what I'm trying to do is important to me, she would support me. I remember my mom would go to the market, and coming back, she would buy snack and a lot of edible things for the other kids. But for me, she always comes home with 2 things. She would come home with a pack of pen and a pack of candles, because I would burn candles to write at night. There was no light in the village at the time. So I went home from school to my mom and I told her, there's this story I'm working on. I need to understand certain things, how they were done in the Eastern cultures. So she said, okay, she's going to take me to someone and I will ask my questions. So she took me to this interesting man. His name is Mr. Jonas Obani Korobia. Mr. Jonas Obani Korobia, he's late now. And he's also one of the persons I acknowledged in this book. So then in the village, he was popularly known as Okongu guy. So when I mention Okongu guy, a lot of people would remember him. He's late now. So he was a traditionalist and he played the flute so well. So he is one of the persons who inspired the title of the story itself, Sound of the Flute. So he played the flute so well, and the sound of his flute is one of the sounds with which you know whether he's around or not. In fact, with his flute, he could communicate to the villagers and say certain things when he was in a bad mood, or if something happened and he wanted to play a dirge to someone who passed on. He plays his flute from his house in the silence of the night, and everyone around the village will hear him play, will hear his sound, filtering through the night wind. The night would be so quiet and cool, and you will hear the sound of his flute playing from his house, and a whole lot of villagers will hear him. And for the elderly ones, I used to wonder how they understood what he was saying with the flute. So with the flute, you would understand when he says someone has died and there's going to be some funeral happening or some sort of condolence visits happening. He had a way of communicating all of that in his flute playing. So my mom took me to him and I had to ask him a lot of questions. He told me that there are certain cultural practices that someone like me would never be privileged to know, because I do not belong to the court of the traditionalists. So those information were kind of exclusive to those who were members of those traditional practices court. So one of the cultures he explained to me was how those who this what we call omenana, that is the tradition, the traditionalists, when they have one of their members die, there are processes to their funeral rites. You know, when they are paid their last respect, some of the traditional things that would have to be done, the traditional music that will be played to bury them, to do their wake keep, to assemble other traditionalists, you know, to attend his funeral. And then there were some funerals that they would not attend, especially when the cause of the death of their member is not known. So they will not attend. And even if they do attend, in some special exceptions, they would not eat anything. If anyone ate anything there, the person is likely to die as well. So they were very, very picky and careful with how they lived their lives and how they did certain things, how they related with each other and with other people. You know, so it was an interesting research that I did there. So after speaking to him, then I had this transistor radio recorder that I went with, and jotter and pen, and he was speaking to me and explaining, and I was writing down, recording the ones that I could record. My mom also took me to some other people. I don't know them. As at the time, I know where they lived, but I didn't really know who they were to me at the time. So I would ask questions and they would explain a lot of things, and I recorded them, and those were part of the materials that made the book Sound of the Flute rich in cultures. I wrote like I lived in their time. So I was in fact amazed at the picture I had been able to create with those cultures, with those details that I was able to gather. I remember one of the characters, who is also a traditionalist in the story, died, and I took my time to talk or write about the process in the funeral. So you read all of this when you get to have the book Sound of the Flute. You see everything. In fact, I had a way of placing my audience, my readers, into that scene where the event is happening. So you actually feel it, you smell the environment as it smells in the story. You feel the emotions, you hear the sound that everybody in that scene would hear. So I managed to do all of that.